Hello everyone, this is part 13 of What If Naruto Was Betrayed and Planned It All, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
2 days prior. Tell me exactly what a king is, the figure asked. He and Naruto were sitting in 2 chairs before a fireplace. It was only a room Naruto had materialized within his mindscape, but it was still relaxing. That is a strange question. Naruto said, "You're talking to me and didn't expect such a question. It's exactly because I'm talking to you that I expected a strange question. I was simply pointing out the strangeness of it. Even for you, it is unusual. Just answer the question. A king is like an emperor. But, by the very definition, an emperor has power over more lands than a king." What do you mean? A king has control over a kingdom, which is a single country or state. And emperors have empires, which are collections of states. So that is why the Kage and daimyos are sometimes referred to as kings. He said before a pause. To think, when I get out of here I'll be a king. When? If you prefer to use the word, if, then feel free. Naruto paused a moment before speaking again. Why, king? What do you mean? Why not Kage? You specified that you would be a king. You took interest in the word to begin with. Why? I already knew what the word meant. I live in your mind. I took an interest in the differences between the words. I chose king, because it has a better ring to it than Kage. A better ring. A different ring. Even if I were to conquer the entire world, I would settle for king over emperor. It's different and not used as often. I would go for hegemon for the same reason. However, it would be a good word for someone with an emperor-like position, but it's a more complicated word that few would understand without a description. I would rather be called a king. When you finally break, and I finally get out of this prison, I will become the greatest and most feared king to ever rule. I find it interesting how our conversations can be so civilized sounding even though we both know you're insane. And they can be so calm until you bring up the topic about you breaking free. Not only that, but you consider my mind a prison when we both know that some would consider your mind a nightmare. You and I both know you're an insane psychopath. You're one to talk. Or have you forgotten who I am? And so soon after our last talk. I'm hurt. I remember who you are. Do not think me a fool. I also remember what you are after, Kichigai. Kichigai simply exhaled a deep breath before standing up. Yes, I want to know what's in that vault of yours. Think what you will of me, but it's your fault. I know that. I know. Now. Kichigai walked out of the shower in the manifested bathroom. He dried himself off before looking into the mirror. He pushing his long, straight, white, and now dry, hair over his ear. His hair was much longer in the back, going down between his shoulder blades, than the rest, which framed his face. His face was slightly thinner than who it was based off of, but it still belonged to someone who he detested. His face changed to become slightly thinner than before as the structure changed. The change was only slight, but the structure was clearly different from before. He looked into his normal pupils, red irises, and golden sclera before turning away. He would need to have the facial reconstruction done in the real world when he got out. He then got dressed. Despite his darker nature, he liked the white coat and pants that materialized in his hands. He wore a dark green, almost black shirt under the jacket. He would need the cloths made when he got out. A jagged and stylized ring of metal formed on his head and rested there. 4 long metal spikes of metal grew out of the top. One grew out above the center of his forehead while all 4 grew out in equal intervals that divided the crown into quarters. 2 short spikes grew out the sides and pointed outward. Just another thing I'll need recreated in the real world. Kichigai said. But at least I have the designs worked out for my crown. Getting out. Speaking of such a thing, I believe I just heard glass shatter. The bathroom faded away as he walked into the main room of the mindscape. The main room had been changed to a large room in a cave system. Through one door, Kurama's cage could be found. Another would lead to the beach and the other cave opening that allowed Kurama a view of the beach. In the main room, there was a massive glass case with several Narutos standing on the shelves. The glass was shattered and one of them was missing. Kichigai started laughing uncontrollably as his laugh slowly became darker. I am free. Break. The entire battlefield stood still as no one moved. Naruto turned to see the electricity die out. What he saw nearly made him vomit. Sasuke slowly removed his hand from Hinata's chest. Hinata was somehow still barely alive and able to keep on her feet, even after Sasuke had turned around with a look of horror on his face. His arm was covered in blood. A moment later and Hinata gave Naruto a sad look before she collapsed. She was dead. Sasuke looked down at her before looking at Naruto. Naruto, I never meant. Why couldn't you just honor your agreement, Tsunade? Now we all die. Why couldn't you all understand what I was doing? Naruto said before turning to Shino. Take her body and get to Izu. Don't come back for me. However, Shino hesitated. Now, I just gave you an order. Shino got rid of his shock, picked up Hinata's body, and looked up at Naruto. Finish this quickly and get back safely. Naruto looked him in the eye, shocking his friend once more with his now golden sclera. A tear flowed down his face. I can't promise coming back, nor can I promise that this will be over quickly. Now go. Shino disappeared in a cloud of insects. You have all brought upon yourselves a death that I can't stop. The animal inside is thirsting for a fight, Naruto said, his hair becoming straight and long as it turned white. His irises turned red. He started laughing. I told that fool I would make my move the moment he broke. Time froze as Naruto stood in his mindscape, looking at Kichigai. I told you, Kichigai said, shifting his crown on his head. Yes, yes you did, Naruto responded. I never did ask this, but do you even remember when you created me? Naruto thought for a moment. Yes, years ago, back when I punched my mirror as a child. My mind mirrored the mirror and cracked. It split, he said before he started sinking into the floor of the cave. You were the byproduct. Or rather, part of it. We were the byproduct. Yes, the embodiment of your own madness. It's why you named me Kichigai. Kichigai said as he turned his head to look at the glass case. They are embodiments of parts of our mind as well. They just aren't strong-willed enough to act. So then, what will you do with your newfound freedom? What will you do, Kichigai, King of Madness? I think I will give you a simple parting gift. I will kill everyone around me right now. I'll let you watch as I kill those who killed your precious friend. Naruto knew it was pointless to argue. There was nothing he could do to stop Kichigai. Back in the real world, Naruto's will faded as he screamed in pain. It stopped before Kichigai straightened his back. He cracked his new neck and knuckles before taking in a deep breath and exhaling it. I'm finally free. Years trapped in his mind and now, Kichigai paused to chuckle. I've got no strings to hold me down, to make me fret, or make me frown. I had strings, but now I'm free. There are no strings on me. As he finished speaking, a burst of energy blasted the surrounding area with him at the epicenter. The rest of the people in the area were forced to shield their faces. The blast died down and the others were finally able to get a good look at what was left of their target. Naruto, Sasuke asked. Kichigai looked at the Uchiha. No, I'm what's left. I am King Kichigai. What are talking about? Naruto is no longer here. He has you to thank for that. I took over, Kichigai said before a Bunshin appeared next to him and hanged into a crown that he placed on his head. He chose to keep the Azukage cloak rather than having a clone form his white coat. This will have to do until I can have a real one made. Now then, he said, looking at everyone around him, each of you will surrender now, or you will be counted along with the endless masses that I will defeat. You will kneel as I conquer the world, or now. Only surrendering now will save more lives, but you have never cared for that much before. We're not going to surrender just because you talk like you're someone else. Tsunade said. Very well, Kichigai said. A split second later and he disappeared. His voice started coming from every direction. Naruto realized a moment too late that there was no hope for any of you. He tried to hold on to hope until the very last second, but he realized in the end that you were all beyond saving. He always wanted to keep me back, but he realized too late that the only end to the path he walked would lead to my freedom. He should have gone all out. Instead he held back. And now, that path, will lead to your deaths. Futon, Chaos Storm. Wind tore through the area from every direction, ripping up trees and sand. Some of the Anbu who couldn't stick to the ground in time were killed when they hit the trees and their spines and necks were broken or their heads split open. As the dust kicked up, they lost the ability to see. Some of them lost their concentration and were thrown away like dolls when the dust entered their eyes. Minutes later, when it finally settled, Sasuke opened his eyes to see that he was no longer in the same clearing. He looked around and was astounded to see that they were in the mountains. He was standing on a ledge near the peak, his ears hurting while he adjusted. He looked up to see Kichigai standing just a few yards above him on the peak. I figured that it would be more fun to fight you all separately so that I could stretch my new legs. Kichigai said. Now, to answer the question of who I am in a better way. I am King Kichigai, the one who has been trapped in Naruto's mind for many years, the one who waited for years to get free and take over, and the one who has finally murdered my maker and gained my freedom. I am all that remains. Now, defend yourself. Kichigai disappeared again and Sasuke couldn't even acknowledge the fact that his opponent was gone before he felt pain in the back of his head. Kichigai didn't wait after the kick to Sasuke's head to appear again punch Sasuke's stomach. However, his fist hit solid chakra in the form of an ethereal rib. Good. I get to see the Susanoo. Wouldn't want this to be boring. But I can step things up too. Kichigai backed away. Sasuke had his armored Susanoo try to grab him. He started running along the side of the mountain. However, he quickly appeared behind Sasuke. He placed his hand on the armor of the Susanoo and a sealing array started spreading out. Kichigai was shocked to see the array crawl back up his arm and recede from the armor. He retreated once again as Sasuke turned around and had his armor raise its sword in its right hands. Damn rebound. I have the knowledge, but not the experience to properly place arrays directly on solid chakra constructs. Kichigai said. He placed his hand on a rock. The sealing array moved to the rock. The rock turned to dust once the seal established itself. Sasuke's sword came down and cut into the stone where Kichigai once stood on. Stop this. I don't care who you are. Just stop this so that this will be over. Sasuke said. I cannot leave this undecided. I will have a true victory here. I won't run either. I won't step down to battle another day. You will remember me for all time. I might have much stronger attributes, but this determination is a vital part of me. Break. Kichigai appeared out of the water of the river as his Mizubunshin was destroyed. He lunged after Shikamaru who was still retracting his shadow. He once stabbed his sword down the back of Shikamaru's neck and into his spine, but he retreated as Sakura's fist came down on him. Shikamaru didn't last much longer as his strategy fell apart. Sakura held Kichigai's fists while shadows rushed at him. However, she didn't expect him to lower his head and stab her eye with one of the blades on his crown. Kichigai quickly used the Haraishin to get behind Shikamaru. He didn't use his sword this time. Instead he drove his hand into Shikamaru's back and gripped his spine. He ripped the spine out and smiled as the skull came out as clean as the spine, only blood and sinew attached. Sakura, you can be useful as a medic. Tsunade will never join, but I can still use you. Hail to the king. To me. Kneel to the crown and you will stay alive. You will be able to stand in the sun. Sakura used her medical jutsu to stop the bleeding from her irreparable eye before rushing Kichigai with her enhanced strength. Shikamaru's skull nearly knocked her unconscious after it had been whipped at her by the spine. She could have sworn she heard her own skull crack before she felt her back hit the water of the river. She then saw Kichigai standing over her. You disappointed me, so I have to give you a punishment. Regret your helplessness and feel despair. Let the water flow with shades of red now. Kichigai said before stepping on Sakura's face. He applied pressure until her face went under the shallow water. Sakura felt pain in her lungs from lack of air and pain in her face as Kichigai lifted his other foot to place all his weight on her face. She heard her nose break before she felt the pain. She didn't expect the other foot to slam into her chest. She released all of her breath and the blood coming up her throat. The pressure left her face before everything went black. Kichigai had crushed her skull. Good. Now that they're dead, it's one less thing to worry about. He said as he turned into the water he was made from. Break. Kichigai's giant, golden shroud of the Kyuubi used its tails to grab one of Sasuke's crossbow bolts out of the air. Sasuke had already pushed his Susanoo to its final stabilized mode while Kichigai was within a fox-headed humanoid version of the chakra cloak. Had Anan been that high in the mountains watching, They would have been amazed to watch these two massive entities fighting on the side of the mountains themselves. A massive ball of Amaterasu flames formed in one of the Susanu's hands before sending a stream of the black fire towards Kichigai. However, Sasuke was unprepared for the flames to encounter a giant, white, ethereal ribcage. Sasuke was just able to see Kichigai's eyes swirl into a strange pattern that Sasuke recognizes as some form of the Sharingan. These eyes once belonged to Shisui Uchiha, but I chose not to use their special ability for now. I want things to be more fun. Kichigai shouts over the roaring wind. The ethereal cage expands into flaps of armor along the shoulders and thighs of the chakra cloak as the rib cage sinks in and rests where it normally would in a person. Small, spiked plates formed along the spines of the 9 tails, while a spiked helmet that resembled a crown formed on top of its head, though Ai's face is still exposed. There is also a massive sword at its hip that Sasuke recognizes. It's the sword that Naruto had always used. It is recognizable by the green dragon along the handle. There is also a cloak resting on its shoulders. Sasuke let out a yell as he charged Kichigai. He was starting to question whether or not he could win this battle. He wondered if he had tried taking on more than he could handle. But in this moment, it didn't matter. He had started this. He had no choice but to finish it, even if he didn't like the outcome. Tails came from behind Kichigai and grabbed the Susanu's arms, but the arms were quickly out of the grip. Sasuke drew his Susanu's sword and brought it down on the Kyuubi shroud's head. However, 10 separate objects blocked his blade. The objects were all swords, either in the shroud's hands or one in each tail. The one in its hands was from its hip, but the others were replicas of the same blade with one difference. The blades in the tails were white in place of the black. 2 of the blades held Sasuke's in place while the others started to move. Sasuke responded by using the wings on the back of his Susanoo to become airborne and dodge the blades. He had never pushed the Susanoo this far, but knew that he had to endure the pain or it would cost him his life. He thought he might have the advantage now, but was shocked to see Kichigai slowly entering his Dragon Sage mode. The features of the shroud began changing, but the changes were slow. He needed to finish this before the fight continued for too long. Break. Kichigai placed another explosive tag on a tree as he passed by. These two were more difficult opponents than the other pair. They were more fun. There was another explosion close behind him as the explosion he had just used exploded. They were catching up. He smiled. Kichigai planted his foot into the ground and twisted his body, raising his fist as he did so. He was only just turned around when Tsunade and Kakashi rushed into sight. He was hoping to get Tsunade with this, but Kakashi would work. While Kakashi had his Sharingan active, he didn't have time to react to the extended arm that caught him in the neck via a clothesline move. Simple yet effective as his momentum carried him a few more feet. Kichigai jumped into one of the trees to avoid an earth-shattering punch from Tsunade, but he was quickly back on the offensive as scales started spreading across his arms. He had to take this slow or he would be facing a similar problem to that of his current lacking in ceiling arrays. Tsunade blocked as Kichigai's clawed fist tried to hit her gut, but didn't expect him to use the scales on his arm to scratch up her own. She retreated as he tried to jab his hand at her this time, attempting to sink his claws into her shoulder. She was able to grab his wrist, trying to disregard the pain of his scales growing and digging into her hand. She quickly used his lapse in movement to deliver a skull-crushing blow to his head. She could feel his cranium cave in under the force of her attack. Tsunade thought she had some sort of a victory, but was only half surprised to the body turn into mud. She was far more surprised to feel claws digging into her shoulder blade. She was about to activate her creation rebirth seal when she felt a foot on her back and the claws start pulling on the flesh of her shoulder. Excruciating tore through her, but it was eclipsed by the fear of whatever had caused the massive explosion she could feel shaking the earth. Tsunade. First, I'm going to go, disable Kakashi. Then, I'm going to drag you back to Izu where you will be prepared for your public execution. I'll rip out your throat with my bare hands. Kichigai said in a sadistic tone. Tsunade felt pain rip into her again before her creation rebirth activated. She would not let it end that easily. Break. Sasuke had his Susanoo lower its arms so that he could see what had just happened. He was shocked to see most of the mountain they were battling on was now gone. The Bijudama was not something to be taken tightly. He looked around to try and find Kichigai, but was crashing to the ground before he could find him. He looked behind him to see Kichigai in his chakra shroud. The shroud had changed again. There were massive dragon wings of chakra growing out of the shroud's back. The wings matched those of the ones on Kichigai's own back. Spikes were growing out above the shroud's eyes. The Susanoo armor grew out over the crest and backs of the wings. I feel so alive, Kichigai shouted as he drove Sasuke into the ground. The force of the Susanoo slamming into the base of the mountain sent Sasuke towards the ground and he became unbalanced. He fell from the head of the Susanoo and hit the ground a second later. The pain of hitting the rocks coupled with the pain of maintaining his Susanoo kept him from being able to keep the construct formed any longer. The construct shattered and quickly faded away. Sasuke rolled over to look up at Kichigai. He knew that he was about to die. He couldn't fight something so powerful in this state. Confusion came as the shroud disappeared, the Sage Mode and Susanoo going with it. Kichigai landed on his feet a few moments later, Sasuke laying a few feet away. He could see the question in Sasuke's eyes. What's the point in killing you with all that power when you are down to so little? There's no fun to that. I want you all to be broken down by my hands until your hope has died. I will beat you down until the victory is mine. Now stand up and show me some pride, he said, offering his hand. I might be insane, but I won't kill the greatest source of fun I've ever seen. Not yet, anyways. Sasuke laid there a moment before taking the hand. He got onto his feet and backed up. He composed himself before drawing his own sword. He was trying to hide his fear. Do you think you can hide your fear from me? Kichigai asked. I am one with my inner warrior. And when the world looks upon this battlefield, the evidence of that fact will be undeniable. And as I look upon you through these warriors' eyes, I see the fear that will ensure my victory. And with that, their battle resumed. Break. Another explosion went off as Kichigai threw another explosive tag that blew up in Tsunade face. Tsunade burst from the smoke and brought her fist down. Kichigai dodged and watched as the ground was destroyed. As long as he held back his most powerful abilities, this was great fun. It would be even more so if he didn't have to hold back. He turned around and started running. He had an amazing idea. It was easy to bend angry people to your will. It was one of the first things Kichigai took note of when he got free. Naruto fell first. Now Tsunade. It was all too easy. Come on Tsunade. I'm glad you lasted longer than your student, but this is pathetic. I'll make you a deal. If you can land a hit on me, I'll give you her crushed in head to bury. Kichigai said. This enraged Tsunade. Did you kill her, you bastard? Yes. It was fun listening to her screams of pain. Even better than the time Naruto skinned her alive. Tsunade started rushing after him in rage. She thought she was going to lose her mind from the rage and hatred flowing through her. They ran like this for several minutes before Tsunade caught up to him. She leapt into the air and came down, ready to end this. Kichigai flipped into the air so that he looked her in the eye. He was smirking just as her fist was about to make contact with his face. It was as this was about to happen that he burst into a cloud of smoke. The smoke blew past her just before her hand was about to hit the ground. Her eyes opened in realization as she saw what Kichigai had done. Her fist was buried in Kakashi's chest milliseconds later. She had been fooled. Rotten luck, Kichigai said, standing over her. Everything, falling apart around you. That can't be fun. Too bad. I was having fun fighting you. But it's over now. He grabbed her throat before sealing her into a scroll. Now all that remains is the Uchiha. Beak. Do you think that hiding will grant you mercy? There is no mercy from the edge of the blade. Kichigai shouted. They had been crossing blades for several minutes before Sasuke threw a smoke bomb and disappeared. But Kichigai could tell he was still near. He then turned to the trees. He knew where to look. You can't hide now. I am the ultimate warrior. I will give you a chance to come out now. So decide now. Decide how they'll remember you. Decide how this world will remember you. Do not hide now. Act like the warrior you were trained to be. Show your pride now, and you will solidify your place in time. Come out now, and history will not forget you. Minutes passed in silence before Kichigai sighed. Fine. The fun had to end eventually. Kichigai held up his palm. The arm of the Susanoo appeared under his own as a ring of Magatama appeared above him. They flew forward and ripped through the trees before a massive explosion tore apart the area. When the explosion died down, Kichigai walked forward. He found a badly injured Sasuke trying to crawl away. He walked up next to him and kicked him the side. Sasuke was forced onto his back by the kick. Sasuke managed to get up and duck behind a fallen log as a barrage of shuriken flew after him. Don't you turn your back on me. I want to see the light leave your eyes when I kill you. Kichigai was over the log and was able to kick Sasuke in the head before having him on his back again. I told you there would be no mercy from my blade. Goodbye, Kichigai said. He brought up his sword but stopped in a split second of hesitation. He smirked before cutting through Sasuke's chest. All obstacles have been cleared. Time to go home. Break. The people within the Azukage Tower stepped aside as Kichigai dragged Sasuke's dead body and Tsunde's unconscious one through the halls. He was leaving 2 bloody trails behind him on the floor. 1 for each body. He eventually found his way to one of the Anbu. He handed them Sasuke's body. Take this to Obito and Itachi. Have them rip out his eyes. If Itachi tries causing chaos over it, tell him that I will explain everything later. Kichigai said. Kichigai kept walking with Tsunade dragging behind him. When he finally got to what was now his office, he found 4 people waiting for him. Kamaji, Akira, Shino, and Anko. They stood there, looking solemn as they stared at him. Kichigai could see their shock at his changed appearance. He just smirked and threw Tsunade's limp form into the wall and out of the way. Naruto, what happened? Anko asked. Kichigai just stared at them. Then he smirked. Short version. Naruto died. I'm Kichigai. What did you say? Shino said. My name is Kichigai. Naruto is dead. He became me. But you and everyone else will call me King Kichigai. Kichigai said before he walked around his desk to sit down. When Hinata died, so did the man you once knew. I'm what's left. Break. I'm worried, Anko. Shino said. I know. Anko responded. They were walking along the halls of the King's Tower, as the Azukage Tower was now called. They were headed to give a mission report to Kamaji. It had before nearly a week since Kichigai had replaced Naruto, and things were already changing. He didn't even go to her grave after, let alone during, her funeral. Look what he did to Itachi. Anko said. When Itachi confronted him about Sasuke, things had quickly turned ugly. Itachi had only just gotten out of the Bacta tanks, but he was in them once more. I know, but we can't do anything right now. Shono responded. There are plenty of things we could do. The problem is that none of the options are favorable. You do realize he's going to move soon, right? Yes, but the changes going on within this village are becoming more noticeable. Some of the people are afraid of what has happened to their leader. Yeah, and Akira is going to confront him later today if he hasn't already. He's stayed out of Kichigai's way so far, but he's going to try putting a stop to this soon. You don't sound like you agree with Akira confronting him. I am. Naruto has changed, but that's why we need to support him right now. Support him. He's my friend too, but if this goes on then Azu and Orb will fall apart. Shino rounded on her. We are not just his friends. We are his family. And in case you missed it, he saw someone he once considered his brother kill Hinata. Yes, he has changed more than even I expected after what happened, but you and I both know why her death affected him like that. Whatever is happening inside his head right now, Itachi already proved that confronting him head on isn't going to fix this. Anko couldn't argue with him, she didn't know how. What should we do then? He's avoiding contact with most of us under normal circumstances, we can't confront him, and we definitely can't do nothing. I know that. I'll work on something. For now, go give our mission report. What will you do? I'm going down to torture and interrogation to keep Akira from doing something stupid. They went separate ways as Shino made his way through the halls to the streets. He continued walking until he eventually came to a small building. He stepped through the door and walked down the endless staircase on the other side. It was too dark to see after a few steps, but that didn't matter to anyone who knew the way. He kept walking down each step before coming to a stop and turning to the side. He easily grasped a doorknob and opened the door. The door was only parallel to the step Shino was on, being above the others to create an uneven step. The open door spilled light into the stairway for a moment before he stepped through and closed it. He was now within the torture and integration department. Shino turned down a hall as he heard a woman's screams from down within the facility. He heard one of the metal doors close around a corner before turning down another corner. He saw the room he was headed towards before the door blasted off the hinges. Akira was the object that had sent the large door flying. Kichigai followed him out, but he was on his feet rather than in the air. You will watch your tongue, Akira, or you will have it cut from your head. My name is not Naruto, and if you think you can threaten me like that again, then you are dead wrong. Kichigai said. I destroyed iron to set an example. It's the same reason I'm force-feeding Tsunade drain cleaner. When I take her to Konoha for her execution, the whole world will realize that it can't challenge me or Orb any longer. Now go. I have work to do. Akira stood up and glared at Kichigai a moment before walking away. Meet with me and Anko later, Shino said to Akira as he passed. Akira nodded as he disappeared. Shino walked up to Kichigai as he returned to the room he had come from. Keep certain whispers unsaid, Shino. It's the best way to save your life, Kichigai said. He walked over to a tied-down Tsunade as she struggled against the restraints. Hold still. Pouring drain cleaner down people's throats becomes difficult when they struggle. Tsunade struggled more when Kichigai took a jug of green, viscous fluid and put it next to her face. She refused to open her mouth, but Kichigai held her nose closed and twisted. This cut off air and caused pain. It took time, but Tsunade eventually opened her mouth to breath. The opening to the jug was in her mouth and pouring in drain cleaner within the same instant. Tsunade writhed and screamed in pain while Kichigai's smirk only got larger. He then placed his hand on her forehead and forcibly activated the seal she had there. He left her like that as he turned to Shino. Anko and some of the others are starting to question your actions. Sending the Bahamut to destroy Iron, spending the last week down here torturing Tsunade, and mobilizing the shinobi. People here in Azu are afraid. Shino said. Are you one of them? Kichigai asked. I'm questioning how you're holding up, but no. I'm with you, my friend. You do realize I'm not Naruto, right? Of course. Naruto didn't just change into you. But you're a part of what he once was. You're what's left of him. I do want him back, but I'll stick with you. Then you have new orders. Divide you clan into 6 sections. One section will embed themselves in each of the 5 great villages, with the 6th spreading through the minor ones. You will lead the faction going to Konoha. Don't have anyone worry about Taki or its warring neighbors. Fu and Kakazu will deal with that. You are to have them plant 10 chaos mines in each of the main villages, 5 in their lands, and 3 in the minor lands. All 5 villages, sir. Why Kiri and Suna? Kichigai pulled out several files. Contingencies. What I'm going to do might turn them against me. I will unite this world under my rule as king, and I will not let 2 villages be the single barrier left between me and that goal. What do you want me to do about the others? Tell them that the goal of uniting the world for peace is still the goal, even if parts of the plan have changed. I know that Obito will stick with me. Until the world is united at the very least. Convince Anko and the others if you can. I'll handle the rest. I'll stand by you until the end, but I would still like it if you could tell me the endgame. Still trying to decide that. I'll get back to you on it though. Now go. Contact me when the planting of the chaos mines are complete. Shino nodded and left. Kichigai placed one of the files on a table. He had already knew what he would do. He knew that the winter contingency was his endgame. He went to the last page and looked at the only line as greedily as Naruto once had. He had known that this was what he would choose from the moment he was free and had the chance to look in Naruto's personal vaults. He turned to Tsunade and walked over to her with the file before deactivating her seal. He held the file up to her. See that, Tsunade? Kichigai asked. That's the last step of the winter contingency. That's what I'm going to do. That is how this war will end. Tsunade's eyes were wide as she read the one line. Final step, destroy the world. That's right. I'm going to unite this world under my rule. And then, when I get bored, I'll destroy this world. You truly are insane. Tsunade ground out through gritted teeth and pain. Kichigai chuckled and his smirk grew to the largest it could. He leaned in close to Tsunade's ear. Why do you think my name is Kichigai? Of course I'm insane. But you should take comfort in the fact that you won't around to be bothered by it much longer. Now then, where were we? Kichigai asked as he held up a potato peeler. But, of course, we can't have your mind checking out on us. So I will be having you do what Naruto did to Sakura when he peeled away her flesh. What's 1000-7? Break. A month had passed since Akira had tried to confront Kichigai. 2 months since he gained his freedom. 1 hour since an assassination attempt had been made on him. What was left of the attacker was still all over the walls of Kichigai's office. The attacker had managed to scar his face with cuts from a sword, but he wanted them to remain. They would help keep some people on his side for now. He had even kept his face the same as Naruto's so far. He wanted people to see his face as he conquered the world, as well as keep some of their loyalty for now. And most recently, he had just given the order that would change Azu. Many of the shinobi had been reluctant at first, but they hadn't argued much when Kichigai told them they would end like his attacker if they didn't follow his orders. No one wanted to argue with him right now. They were all too scared right now. And while they were all scared, most had already become pawns Kichigai could use without question. Kichigai walked to the open window and watched as one of his shinobi knocked on the door of a civilian home. He inhaled deeply. There is a taste of fear in the air, he said. Their orders were to bring the entire village before the tower so that he could address them. If the civilians resisted, the shinobi were to insist. I will use an iron fist to tame them if necessary. I will use my iron fist to claim everything for myself, Kichigai said. It wasn't long before everyone was gathered. Only a handful required insistence. Kichigai walked to a balcony where he could address the crowd. Shino was now standing next to him. The Aburame had returned the day before. Shino was ready to help Kichigai, even in this. He knew that it would help prevent bloodshed within Azu. Shino pumped his fist into the air. Hail to the king. Most of the shinobi on the ground and many civilians raised their fists. All hail King Kichigai. Others who were reluctant either stayed silent, or reluctantly joined in. Hail, hail, hail. Kichigai raised his hands and the crowd fell silent. I know that most of you are scared of things that have recently happened. I know that you are scared of the things to come. But, you should all know that there was a recent attempt on my life as part of an attempted rebellion last night. A group of people who have not been agreeing with my recent changes in management. The attempt on my life earlier today was a last try at completing that rebellion. Some of those people have evaded capture for now, but those remaining criminals will be hunted down and executed. Any collaborators will suffer the same fate. These have been trying times, but we have passed the test. The attempt on my life has left me scarred, but I assure you my resolve has never been stronger. A war is coming, but the Hokage is our prisoner and the rebellion has been crushed swiftly. We stand on the threshold of a new beginning. In order to ensure our security and continuing stability, the world will be reorganized into the First World Empire, for a safe and secure society which I assure you, will last forever. An empire that will continue to be ruled by a sovereign ruler. I will lead this empire as your king. I will lead this empire to glory. Most of the crowd cheered. Hail, hail, hail. So this is how justice dies, corruption claims its greatest enemy, and greatness falls. With thunderous applause, Akira said, standing on a nearby roof. What are we going to do now? Mikasa asked. We gather our organization, Angela said. Yes, get everyone ready. We're making our move in the morning. Akira said. Break. Kichigai was preparing one of his squads for the imminent attack on some of the lands on the border of Hai no Kuni. It had been one of the ones that had not joined Orb, instead being an ally to Konoha. They didn't have a real military apart from simple guard training. It's why he was only taking himself, Shino, Sasori, and Deidara. This was a mission to destroy the land for now. They could go back in and take over later. Tsunade was tied up and kept in a box nearby. They were keeping her there until it was time to leave. They were currently in one of the docks with 2 Shiva-class airships. None of the engineers or crews of the ships were there yet, leaving the large hangar to them. Kichigai was now wearing fearsome armor that he had found within Naruto's vaults. It was classified under the file name, The End. The helmet was black with 3 long horns. One angled towards the back while going up from the center of the top of the head. The other 2 angled downward while pointing past the front of the face from the side of his head. Two black panels stretched over and past his shoulders with large red gems above where the shoulders would actually be. His legs had black armor with thin red gems on the center of his feet. His arms were clad in black armor with the palms covered in a gray fabric to allow movement. His forearms had a mechanism near the wrists with 3 white claws on each that pointed up the arm. The mechanisms would flip the curved blades outward if it was necessary. His chest was covered in black armor while his midsection had blood-red metal plates to protect it. On the sides of his chest, near the shoulders, were 2 white metal panels. The door burst open as Akira, Mikasa, Angela, Meizu, and Gozu entered. Mikasa was wearing light armor that was as red as her hair. The armor was only over her torso with plated over her hips and upper arms. Under the armor black clothing that was padded to still provide defense without interfering with her movement. There were 2 scrolls on her hips and one much larger one on her back. Chronicle. I'm glad you could join us. I had a mission planned for you. Kichigai said. He knew that wasn't why they were here. That's not why we're here. I'm not about to let you go and destroy everything. I told you once before that I would stand beside you as long as I could understand what you were doing, but the time has come for me to stand against you. Akira said. Kichigai sighed. What a pity. Leave us, and take Tsunade with you. The others getting ready to leave with him left, taking Tsunade's crate with them, but Akira's team stayed. I really hoped it wouldn't come to this. Well, let's not delay. Let's get it over with. Kichigai rushed forward and went after Angela with his sword drawn. He was stopped when Akira used his now armor-clad arms to block the attack. So, you've advanced that far in your work on that chakra. Impressive. This will be fun. Kichigai said. Watch this. Akira said as the armor covered his entire body, pointed cables hanging from the back of the shoulders. He drew his blades, which became black with red pulsing veins, and slashed at Kichigai from above. Kichigai grabbed both blades with his hands, his own armor protecting him. Kichigai kicked Akira away and rushed forward to kill him with the opening left. He was quickly forced back when Angela brought her sword down on him. He went back in and was about to create an opening when he was forced to dodge a bladed chain. As he dodged the chain, sealing arrays appeared and tried to swallow him up. He threw his hand towards them and corrupted them with his own seals. Akira rushed forward, used his bladed to sever one of Kichigai's arms. Kichigai moved backwards before flying through his own one-handed seals. He held the hand sign in the center of his chest before the 2 white plates on his chest popped open to reveal several black lenses. Red lightning started crackling around each of them. Vascud crisis. Kichigai shouted. Red beams of light fired from each lenses and started chasing each of his opponents around the hangar. One of them chased Akira as he leapt over the docked airship and tore through it to get ahead of him. The beams stopped after a few minutes. The most damage they had done was lightly searing part of Gozu's arm. Kichigai was then surrounded. So, this is how it ends? Kichigai asked. He sighed before using his one hand to rip off the armor on his torso. There was a massive black seal in a fractal pattern with more seals the more closely it was looked at. I give you the most extensive mutually multiplying explosive tag to ever exist. I shouldn't have held back. But it doesn't matter. It was still fun. No. Akira shouted. The entire dock exploded in the next instant. Anyone nearby watched for the next 10 minutes as the explosions continued. At the end, the explosions condensed into a small ball of energy that then blasted outward and dissipated. When the dust settled, a small barrier of black armor could be seen. Akira had his armor projected around him as he used it and himself to shield the others from the blast. He coughed up blood. Is everyone all right? He asked. The armor faded. Angela wrapped her hands around him as he collapsed. Why did you do that? She asked. I needed to protect you. Akira responded. He was going to live, but he was exhausted and in far too much pain to move right now. He would need to be in the back to tanks for weeks to heal the burns that had exposed part of his spine. The sound of a blade piercing flesh attacked the silence. Akira looked up in shock and horror as he saw something he didn't think should still exist. He saw a blade sticking through Mikasa's chest where the heart would be. It was the owner of the blade that was impossible. Quite the noble act. But, in the end, it was pointless. Everyone you care about still dies, Kichigai said as he removed his sword and dropped Mikasa's body. He didn't hesitate to decapitate one of the brothers, jam the other's own gauntlet into its owner's chest, and grab Angela by the neck. He held Angela up with both hands and crushed her windpipe before dropping her. Akira extended his arm to reach for her, even though it burned to do so. How could things have gone so wrong? He watched as Angela slowly died from the panicked asphyxiation. How did you survive? How do you have both arms? What just happened? Akira asked. Kichigai chuckled darkly. You want to know? I obtained my own form of immortality. You're about to die anyways. So let me tell you how Naruto's experiments opened a doorway to the inability to be killed. He took a few minutes to explain what he was and how he had survived. Akira's eyes widened in horror. And then he died. Break. Kichigai stood on top of the front of the Shiva-class ship. He was going to burn this small country to the ground and knew the best way to do it. Kaiten, desolation. The violet flames sped forth and were about to make contact with the forest before a wall of crystals rose from the ground and blocked it. Kichigai stopped the flames the moment the wall appeared. The blue-gray crystals turned to dust when the fire stopped. 3 clouds of sand flew into the air with a person on each. The osmium dust mostly fell to the ground, but a portion went into the blue-gray canister at Gaara's hip. Temari and Kankuro were on the clouds next to him. Gaara, I didn't expect you to get in my way. Not yet at least, Kichigai said. Nor did I, Naruto. Rather, I suppose I should call you Kichigai. It's King Kichigai. Stand aside, Gaara. I do not want to kill you or battle against your village. And I don't want to fight you, but I will not let you destroy this country like you did Iron. I will not let you destroy these people to set an example. Then you're leaving me with no choice. Captain, take the ship to another location. I will rejoin you later. Kichigai said before he jumped off the ship and entered his Kyuubi chakra shroud. The ship turned and moved further away. I'd rather not start out with our Biju. Let's head to the ground. Is that what you told Yagura when you murdered him? Gaara asked. I was hoping you wouldn't know about that yet. He tried to kill me. He thought he saw history repeating itself in a zoo from his rule of Kiri. I did kill him and cover the walls of my office with his blood, but only after he stood against you. After he tried to kill me. But at least he didn't leave me without a parting gift. Kichigai said before his shroud disappeared. He fell, but before he hit the ground, chakra surrounded him yet again. No. How did you? How do I contain the Sanbi? Kichigai asked from within the body of Isabu. I ripped it out of his seal and used my own seals to contain him. Now, are we going to fight with our Biju, or without? Gaara sighed as he went lower to the ground. The Sanbi disappeared to leave Kichigai in its place. Good. Now let's get on with it. Kichigai said before flashing through hand signs. Vascud crisis. Gaara raised another barrier of osmium that crystallized under the pressure Gaara put on it. When the beams stopped, the crystals turned into blades that stated chasing after Kichigai. Part of Kichigai's armor opened in the back as dragon wings grew. He quickly took to the sky and dodged the weapons. One of them went for his heart and would have hit its mark had he not sealed it in a scroll. Kichigai flew through more hand signs as he dove to the ground. The moment he landed, he activated his jutsu. Kaiten, Valley of Ashes. Fire shot out in every direction, but it didn't matter as Kankuro pulled out a scroll and summoned 10 of the puppets from his collection. When Chio had finally died, she had given him the puppets he now wielded. The Chikamatsu puppets. The puppets easily blocked the fire. Konkuro. Temari. Ready? Gaara asked. His siblings nodded. Go. The fire died just as waves of sand rushed up around Kichigai and carried him into the air. The sand started swirling into the dome as Konohiro had one of his puppets fire off bombs and fire into the empty spaces while Temari used massive Fuyuten Jutsu to feed the fire. Burning sand coffin. Gaara shouted as he crushed the sand into a much smaller ball. Gaara unleashed his iron, gold, uranium, osmium, iridium, and tungsten dust before waves followed them from the ground. He obviously struggled to compress the elements into massive spears that stabbed into the sphere. Once they had clearly impaled every spot, he condensed the material further. His siblings were brought next to him again as tears came from his eyes. He then allowed the sand and various elements to fall to the ground. I'm sorry, Gaara, Temari said as she hugged him. He was our friend too. Konokuro said. Yes, yes he was. We gather her today to bid farewell to our friend. He will be missed, Kichigai said behind them with mock sobbing. The Sand siblings turned to look at him in shock. You didn't expect me to go down that easily, did you? Watch this, Kichigai said before his iris twisted into the M's. Golden chakra flowed around him as his wings flapped to raise him into the air. Moments later and his Susanoo armored, sage shroud formed. Now then, show me what you are. Kichigai went to step on him, but he was stopped by the massive amount of sand that started forming around Gaara. Your creator once showed me a truth. I gave Gaara a chance, Shukaku said as he formed. He was right. It is a shame I never got the chance to thank him. But I will thank him by avenging him. Most see you as what is left or what he has become, but you are neither. You are what the humans once viewed us as. A monster. You are the evil people once saw Naruto as. And now, I will end you. How can you tell me that? Look at me. If I didn't want entertainment, I could stop you now with the M's. So, how will you stop me? Who said that we were fighting you alone? Gaara said as part of him rose from the top of Shukaku's head. Large bursts of chakra appeared around him as three other Jinchuriki unleashed their own beasts. Utakata was on Kichigai's left, Han on his right, and Yugito behind him. Han, I thought you refused to fight. Kichigai said. I refuse to stand by and allow you to do this. You are not the man we once put our faith in. Han said. And I assume you others are the same. The others nodded. Kichigai's smirk grew. Good. That means this will be fun. The wings of his shroud started beating, ripping apart the forest bellow. However, he stayed on the ground. He was just trying to put on a show of power to intimidate them. Han charged, leaning his head down to ram his horns into the side of the shroud. Kichigai turned and grabbed the horns before pulling and flipping Han's tailed beast mode over his head. His shroud was knocked off its feet when Yugito used her tails to land a hit on its shoulder. The shroud dissipated and reformed, standing up with Kichigai in its head again. Utakata got in close before wrapping his tails around the shroud. He then started spraying acid in waves, creating an acrid smoke. A moment later, a burst of wind pulsed outward. The acid was sent flying and started destroying part of the battleground. Kichigai stood there unfazed. I expected this to be more fun. Let's see how you vermin scurry beneath my might, Kichigai said. Three clones formed around him before they formed their own shrouds. The shrouds grew together to give the shroud a total of 8 arms. The tails now looked more like the flaming end of a cloak than individual tails. Kichigai also had a full 360-degree view now. Each arm pointed outward with their hands separated. While they did that, the Kichigai formed hand signs. Vascud Crisis. The plates on their chests fired out the beams, but the fingertips of the shroud did as well. None of the targets were nimble enough to dodge them right now, but Gaara was able to manipulate his sand enough to keep Temari and Konkuro out of the way. Kichigai smirked. The four were now trying to regenerate the holes that had appeared, leaving them wide open. He rushed in after Yugito and dug the shroud's claws into her tailed beast state. Sealing arrays flowed up his arms and through the arms of the shroud. Yugito let out a pained scream that shook the ground as the sealing arrays, and her tailed beast chakra, receded up the shroud's arms. Yugito was in the air for a moment before she fell back down to the ground. Sand caught her before she could impact the earth bellow. It was more of a sentimental move, as Gaara knew she was already dead. Kichigai went after Utakata next, but he was stopped by a massive wall of crystallized osmium burst up from the ground in front of him. He turned to Gaara. I will be your opponent. Gaara shouted. Not alone you won't. Han shouted before he and Utakata landed next to Gaara. Gaara was surprised to see them land next to him as he had only just recovered himself because of his manipulation of sand. However, he smiled and prepared to get back in the fight. The osmium crumbled before the dust swarmed around Kichigai at a massive twister. That's how you want this to go, Kichigai said before a smirk grew across his face and the faces of his shroud. Good. Now things are finally getting interesting. But 3 Biju against 1 isn't fair. Let's spice things up. 2 of Kichigai's clones reabsorbed the tailed beast chakra before the left face and 2 of the arms became a blue and black flame as he started using Matatabi's chakra. The right face and 2 of the arms became more opaque and changed to a pale blue as he started channeling Isabu's chakra. Many of the tails disappeared to be replaced with ethereal versions of Matatabe's 2 tails and Isabu's 3. Before combat resumed, the back, left, and right heads snapped up and opened their mouths. Particles began forming as a large Bijudama came together. We have to stop him. Han, Utakata, take his flanks. I'll hit him head on. Gaara said. The others nodded before taking their positions and charging in. Shukaku's form quickly changed as the sand around him compressed. I will trust you with this form, Gaara. Use it wisely. I have let myself go over the years, but that doesn't mean I'm no longer as strong as I once was. I developed this form for when I fought against some of the faster-tailed beasts, or in rare cases faster humans. Now kill this monster. I will use my own dust to cover you. Shukaku's claws remained, but they became sleeker as his arms slimmed slightly. The large amounts of sand reformed to give him a more warrior-like appearance, though the beastly features and the markings still remained and he still hunched over on the hands at the end of his long arms. Gaara shifted his elements so that they condensed into massive sheets. The gold and uranium formed marks similar to Shukaku's through the armor as it formed. The osmium recrystallized and caused massive gems to jut out of the shoulders, down the arms, a portion of Shukaku's exposed face, legs, and his now more spiked tail. Han and Utakata rushed in and quickly restrained the shroud's arms. They quickly started forming their own Bijudama, which formed more quickly because of their smaller size. Gaara charged head-on much faster than he would have moved originally, allowing him to quickly start trying to push his hand into the shroud's head. He was trying to grab Kichigai directly as his claws slowly dug through the dense chakra forming the shroud. Kichigai's smile grew even larger. This just keeps getting better and better. You can keep fighting. It's even better than my fights against Akira and Sasuke. Keep going. Show me more. The mouths of the shroud snapped shut, instantly destabilizing the Bijudama being constructed. Han, Utakata, get out of range. Gaara shouted as he retreated. Han released his Bijudama and tails to retreat, but Kichigai used his newfound freedom to grab onto Utakata. You're staying here to ride the blast with me. Things need to stay fun, but they need to progress too. No, Gaara shouted. The explosions caused an initial shockwave that crushed most of the forest before light kept anyone from seeing the rest of the explosion. When the light cleared, Kichigai was standing in the epicenter of a large crater. He was alone. He released a deep growl as he exhaled. Another one down. Let's keep going. He unclenched one of his shroud's closed hands to show Utakata's body. He dropped the body before abruptly turning around. The shroud was thrown off its feet. He had sensed the 3, extremely powerful new arrivals before he saw them. The shroud picked itself up on a set of elbows as he looked at who had arrived. Fu, and you brought friends. Though, I didn't expect you to turn against me. Kichigai said. Fu stood there in her Biju mode. Bee and Roshi were next to her in the same state. I wanted to believe that Naruto was not really gone. I wanted to believe that you were, at the very least, what was left. But you killing Utakata showed me that you really are just a monster that has taken his place. So now, I'm joining this fight. I'm going to revenge him. Fu said. And how did you bring those 2 along? She came to us when she heard about Yagura. Roshi said. It took little to convince our cage when we told them we were coming to destroy you. I see. Well, believe it or not, I thank you for coming. You have minimized the effort needed for maximum thrill. So let's stop talking. Let's get on with it. Kichigai said. Kichigai disappeared before reappearing, a massive Rasengan in one of the shroud's hands, above Fu. Her whip tail shot up and grabbed the wrist holding the sphere. She flipped over, causing him to land into the ground. The ground shattered as he landed. Kichigai wasn't down for long. I was so glad when you showed up. I knew you would make this even more fun. Black spheres started forming in the maws of each face and each pair of hands. I was right. This is going to be so much fun. So come. Make me feel alive. Make me feel what I finally am. Make me feel free. And then he disappeared from sight. Break. Kichigai limped forward. He was in pain and could feel death at the edges of his conscience, and yet, he had never felt so alive. Even his freedom had not compared to this. He pulled off what remained of his helmet, thus ridding him of his entire set of armor, so to clear the impairments to his vision. The extra 3 showing up had made things more difficult, and therefore, more exciting. He gripped the left side of his abdomen, trying to keep from bleeding out while his bones and flesh regenerated. He knew that if he didn't have 8 biju in his body, his missing parts of bone and lung would leave him dying. When it was down to only Fu and Gaara, they had all exhausted their biju chakra. Fu had gone down when she had killed Kichigai and had a blade through her heart and had her tailed beast ripped out a moment later. He went after Gaara, who was incapacitated for the moment, but was stopped by a burst of wind. He had forgotten about Temari and Konkuro in all the fun. Kichigai had already been worn down, so it had not surprised him when one of Konkuro's remaining puppets had blown a large hole in his left set of ribs and lung. He had been forced to summon one of his bunchen and have it kill them quickly. However, he had been unprepared for a spear of gold to shoot through the clone's head. Gaara had not been doing any better than him. The only reason he was able to walk was because he had some of the osmium condensed into a substitute foreleg and arm for the ones he had lost. One of his eyes had been shredded by, ironically enough, some of the element dust he had gotten in it. Throwing the golden spear had been the last amount of strength he had, forcing his crystal limbs to disintegrate as he collapsed to his knees. Kichigai walked forward before collapsing in front of Gaara. You didn't disappoint. I knew you wouldn't. I have never felt so alive. It's made even better by the feeling of death nagging at the edges of my reality. He said before stabbing Gaara in the chest with his sword. He placed his hand over Gaara's seal before a red surge of energy started shooting into his arm. Goodbye. As the 9 biju within his system caused his bleeding to stop rather quickly. It was the bones reforming through his already closed-up flesh that caused an amazing amount of pain. He was there for another 2 hours before he finally got up, though not without clutching his side in pain. He was able to create a few clones that he had gather the bodies. Kichigai touched his ear and held his finger there as he spoke. Bring the ship around. I need a med team ready upon arrival. I need to make sure that my bones set and regrew properly. And send a signal to Azu. Have them prep the crest gun. We need to pull out of here for now, but this is the perfect time to test our trump card. It was a few minutes of waiting for the light cruiser before it hovered above. A hatch opened along the bottom and people stepped down the ramp. They all had Azu uniforms. 2 of them stepped forward. Sir, we have a problem. Our shinobi were getting the crest gun ready, but forces from snow are holding down the fortress. One of them said. Kichigai growled as he walked up the ramp. There was a thin line for him between difficulties making things fun, and minor annoyances. This was just one of the latter. It was even more annoying because both solutions were easy and the less fun one he could do right now. Get us to the closest radio tower to Snow's border. Once that's done, have one of our people put me in contact with whoever is in charge of their forces there and whoever is currently in charge at Snow. If Kyuki Kazuhana is not there, I want that reported immediately. I want every detail of the current situation. And I want either a good reason for them getting into our territory and taking over that fortress, or the heads of the idiots responsible on my desk by tomorrow afternoon. If they were taken hostage, they're fine. If no one was on guard or managing the mobile fortress units, their heads are mine. I want this fixed now. Break. Kyuki was sitting at a war council with some of her samurai when a messenger brought in one of the portable radios. What is it? She asked. It's King Kichigai. He's requesting to speak with you. She took the radio and spoke into one of the speakers. Why are you contacting me? Greetings, Lady Kyuki. I will not evade the point here. You will remove your forces from the Crest Gen fortress or the moment I have slaughtered them, the first target I point the weapon at is you. You have 30 seconds to respond before I flood the facility with neurotoxin. I'll go in myself and disembowel any who survive the first tactic. I'll keep them alive while I hang them with their own entrails, I might add. Your time starts now. Kyuki was too stunned to say anything for the next 3 seconds before she turned to her council. They were discussing it before they heard Kichigai's voice over the radio again. Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. You have 5 seconds. Wait, Kyuki said. There was no response. She looked around before sighing. We will not pull back our forces. So be it. Commander, tell the Fugaku to initiate its attack on any and all populated areas between its current location and the capital of Snow. Then, have it destroy Snow. The connection was cut off immediately after that. Kyuki threw the radio across the room. She knew what had just happened. He wanted them to hear that. He wanted them to panic at what was coming. Evacuate as many people as possible and ready our defenses. When everyone is evacuated, then they can leave as well. Break. Kichigai stood over the ashes of snow. He had sent a bunshin to disembowel the forces at his weapon while he had followed Naruto's research on increasing the power of Kaiten Jutsu and flooded Snow's capital with radiation 2 minutes after cutting communication with Kyuki. He turned back to the people behind him. Keep your masks up and start working on clearing the radiation, killing anyone left, and clearing the bodies. Everyone else, we're heading to Izu. I will be firing the crest gun myself. Break. Kichigai stepped over a body as he walked to the control room of the massive fortress. He walked past an opening that showed a covered hole in the center of the fortress. What was impressive was that this covered hole was large enough around to fit an average-sized village. As he eventually descended down several levels, he came to the control room of the facility. Ready the weapon, Kichigai said to the engineers around him. There were loud bangs as mechanical gears and locks moved in and out of place. Large grinding noises echoed through the facility as Kichigai walked up to a thick window and looked down into the seemingly bottomless pit. That was when he saw it. He saw the metal structure rising from the abyss. The structure rushed past as the hatch at the opening of the hole opened. There was deafening screeching as the structure slowed down. It finally came to a stop as a massive cylinder that formed the barrel of a cannon rose from the pit. The barrel started leaning down as the structure came to a stop. Good. Now prepare it for firing, Kichigai said before making his way back to the surfaces. The crest gun was a structure of 2 parts. The first and main part was the barrel that made up most of the facility. It was segmented at different intervals by stylized bands. The other part was the base that held the primary gears and controls. It was where the targeting, loading, and basic maintenance of the gun would take place. The back was adorned by several visible gears could be seen, as well as a large face on each side of the gun. The crest gun is ready to fire, sir, one of the nearby shinobi said. Fire. Break. Thank you. Come again, the restaurant owner said. Okay, the boy said as he left the shop. His mother had sent him out for food again. He started running so that he could get home and eat the good-smelling food. He stopped running down the streets of Iwa to look at the light flying through the sky. It looked like it landed just outside the walls before everything flashed. The boy didn't know why, but he felt fear and something wet running down his legs as the light expanded and encompassed everything. Then there was nothing as a Wagakure disappeared from the face of the world. Break. It was 4 hours later when Kichigai got the report. So it works, Kichigai said. A Wagakure no longer exists. Good. Fire 2 rounds on what is left of Snow, 1 of Kumo, and 1 of Hai no Kuni without hitting Konoha. Ready our military. I have other things to take care of. Kichigai disappeared and landed next to Obito. I take it you're for the statue, Obito said. That is correct, Kichigai responded. You can't have it. Excuse me. Don't try to demand it. It's within Kamui and I will destroy my eyes if you try to take them. There was a pause. But you will still fight beside me. Yes. Good. Now I have a Hokage to torture by making her watch as I slaughter her people. Kichigai was gone a moment later. When he appeared in one of his interrogation rooms, he chuckled. Tsunade started panicking the moment she saw him. Great news, Kichigai nearly shouted. That seal on your head that's been keeping you alive through the fun stuff being gone and the fact that we don't have time to wait for the Bacta tanks to work on you means that we are past the physical torture. Tsunade clearly relaxed slightly. Now we are onto the mental. Children are roaming the streets now. They are orphans of a war you started. Oh, but not my streets. Everyone else's. And you get to watch as I slaughter your people, he said before releasing her restraints and disappearing with her. He was going to make her watch while the crest gun annihilated her world. Break. Days had passed since the crest gun had been used to subdue the shinobi world. No one could challenge such a weapon as his destroyed any force that tried amassing to move against it. Kichigai walked through the gates of Konoha, dragging Tsunade behind him by her hair. Many people watched, but they did nothing. The Izu shinobi would kill them in an instant if they moved against him at all. But it didn't matter. They were already too afraid to do anything anyway. He eventually made his way to the Hokage Tower where he got Tsunade up onto a balcony and on her knees. He turned to the crowds and smiled. I am your king now. Kichigai said before ripping Tsunde's throat out with his bare hands. Break. 2 years passed as Kichigai brought the world to heel. The Bahamut fortress, the crest gun, and every other weapon he had at his disposal had made it easy. Obito and Itachi sat at a table in a dimly lit room. Konan, Nagato, Zetsu, Kabuto, and Mei were there as well. If you want our help, you will give us the Gedo statue. Zetsu said. Don't try making demands. Obito said. We all know that if we don't stop him now, there won't be anything left. Now either help us or leave. Zetsu growled. Now. We all have our own reasons to keep the world from ending right now. Let's get on to planning how we are going to deal with Kichigai. I can use my paths to help surround him. My Preta path can help drain his chakra. Nagato said. Is that all you can do? Kabuto asked, pushing back his hood to show his scaled face. I can give you an army of zombies. Kichigai can work through the seals of the Edo Tensei. Itachi said. I've tweaked the seals enough that he would need an hour to examine them. And, yes, I have factored in his prowess in that field. And my colleague Zetsu here has brought a very valuable piece to the table. Madara Uchiha. Zetsu said. I figured as much. Obito responded. I think we already know most of what each of us can offer. What we really need is a plan. I'm sorry to tell you that this little plan of yours will never matter. Kichigai said as he appeared on top of the table. Obito sighed. I was too late. You're already bored of this world. We don't have time to stop the winter contingency. That is correct. We could still kill you. Kabuto said. I'm a bunshin. Kichigai responded. Then we can still cause trouble by standing in your way as you go on your war path. No, you can't. Over the past 2 years, I have been working on my own project towards this end. And now, I only have one stage left. I only have one move left before this world stops existing. What if we provide an exciting challenge? Obito asked. Go on. If we can defeat the real you, then the obvious reward is that our world doesn't end and we live. If you win, then your own reward is just as obvious. A fun and exciting battle and the completion of your plan. Interesting offer. It has been 2 years since I was provided with some decent fun. But I am declining your offer. I have decided that I would rather proceed with the deeper desire fueled by my most basic thought process. I will destroy the world. You have 60 seconds. Say your goodbyes to whoever you must. The clone disappeared as its memories went to its creator. Kichigai stood at the top of the Bahamut. There is no dramatic and cliché final battle. There is no last bid for hope. This is where the world ends. Now then, I really must thank Naruto again. It was his own research on the Sage of Six Paths that allowed me to use a jutsu that counted the creation of all things technique. He held out his hands before he started channeling all the power at his disposal. Ironically, you need the divine eyes to create something, but destroying everything only requires power. Destruction of all things, unravel. A pulse of energy went outward. The area he was standing in was disintegrated, but he remained for a moment while he maintained the point of origin. The wave spread out as everything ended. Break. Mei hugged Ao and Chojuro closer. They were now her closest living friends. Mei really didn't know whether or not death was painful, but she assumed it hadn't when everything ended. Break. Itachi kneeled in front of the graves of his parents and brother. I should have stopped him. I let Obito convince me that we could wait. I let him convince me that we should wait. I should have helped the Jinchuriki when they mounted their attack on him. And now I can't do anything. Break. Zetsu stood within the clearing, looking at the statue. Obito had allowed him to have it considering it no longer mattered. I failed, mother. Break. Konan held Nagato closer. Goodbye Nagato. Goodbye. Then the world ended. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.